Next time on a very spooky fine dining podcast, the season 1 finale, TGI Fridays the 13th. Oh, you betcha, pineapple's gonna hit the fan as Michael's son Juicy, or in this episode, Juice son Voorhees, goes on a murderous rampage, and no one is safe. It gets real spooky, it gets real bloody, and not everyone's gonna make it to the end of the episode. Who will live, who will die? Listen to Fine Dining, the search for the most mediocre restaurant in America, break down a trip to TGI Fridays based on the atmosphere, the service, and the food, and try not to be scared to death. Hear the thrilling finale of Fine Dining, Wednesday, October 25th, wherever you get your podcasts.
Stop complaining about Mohammed bin Salman being invited to visit. Firstly, it's rude. And secondly, it's obviously much safer than going to visit him. I'm Harriet Langley-Swindon. I'm still at the Edinburgh Fringe, and this is Non-Censored. Hello, and welcome to Non-Censored, the podcast that wraps up all the best bits from my very real daily radio show into one easy-to-digest highlights package. I'm still talking to you from the Edinburgh Fringe, where I'm performing my show, That's Politainment, 8 p.m, Pleasance Courtyard, and I'm joined as ever by my producer, Martin. And what a show we have for you this week, eh, Martin?
Oh, yes, indeed. And I'm here too in Edinburgh, working on Buffy Revamped, which is on at the EICC at 8:15 p.m.
Shut up, Martin. No one cares.
Right, yes, of course. This week, we have another edition of Just One Question, our long-form interview format where Harriet asks a guest just one question in order to get to the heart of who they are and why they're in politics.
Don't worry, I do have lots of follow-ups, some of which are completely unrelated to the original question, because it turns out it usually takes more than one question to get to the heart of who someone is and why they're in politics. We should have thought about that before we launched the format, really.
Yeah, well, in retrospect, we shouldn't have done the pilot with Suella Braverman. You didn't even get through that first question before she started talking, and she just didn't stop for an hour.
She can't stop talking, Martin. She's too busy stopping the boats. But speaking of Suella, we are delighted to announce that she will be joining us for our live recording of Non-Censored, which is happening at King's Place in London on the 7th of September, 7 p.m, as part of the London Podcast Festival. She joins Martin's little friend Keir Starmer and another guest as yet to be announced. You can buy tickets at kingsplace.co.uk.
And we are giving away 2 pairs of tickets to the show. All you have to do is email us at noncensoredpodcast@gmail.com with a question you would like to ask Harriet, me, Suella, or Keir, and we'll pick our 2 favourites to put on the guest list with a +1 each. We'll be announcing the winners on our show that comes out on the 1st of September, so we need your questions by the 30th of August, please.
But let's move on to our Just One Question guest. Martin, is it too late to change the name? It's just... Never mind. It's Sir Geoffrey Geoff-Geoffrey, a Conservative MP who, like me, is up at the Edinburgh Fringe to provide an alternative to all those wokey lefty voices. And before we get stuck into Just One Question, I thought I'd ask him about Rishi Sunak's week. Let's take a listen. Well, I'm very excited to be joined in person by Geoffrey Geoff-Geoffrey.
The Right Honourable Geoffrey Geoff-Geoffrey.
Oh, I do beg your pardon, the Right Honourable Geoffrey Geoff-Geoffrey. Thank you. Welcome to the show.
It's lovely to be here. Always very happy to help out a friend.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's always wonderful to have a friend on here. And luckily, I get to do it almost every week. Now, we are going to talk about yourself and where you stand. But first, let's talk about the news, because Rishi Sunak has been in the news. He gave a very stirring interview and he said that he's hurting himself to hurt us, or to quote it perfectly, hurting myself to hurt you.
Yeah. It's just so sad to see it, because you can see in his little eyes, he's really trying. He's trying so hard. And he does hurt himself to hurt us. I believe every evening He takes a pint of blood from himself.
Wow, goodness.
Not under any sort of medical supervision. He just does it himself.
Yeah.
And he doesn't use it for anything. He just hurts himself because he feels like if he's hurting, maybe we won't be hurting so much. He's an absolute terrific chap, Rishi, and we should all give him the benefit of the doubt. That's what I've said from the beginning.
I think you're right, and people forget, don't they? Because it's very hard being encased in that sort of privilege. Because therefore, when you do things like hurting yourself, it's a lot harder because you're not used to it.
Exactly. He's had a whole life of everything he could possibly want whenever he wanted it, particularly, obviously, since his marriage. And it's very difficult for him to get into the mindset of somebody who doesn't have everything. And the fact that he gets anywhere near it at all, I think is an absolute tribute to his ability to empathise.
Yes.
Yes, it was about the bloodletting. Is this something that we should be concerned about? I mean, it sounds like a positive thing in the way that you're spelling it out, but it might worry some of our listeners.
No, I mean, I think bloodletting is too strong a term for it, really. He's just showing that he, does he hurt? Does he have human feelings? Is he not somebody who has the same literal physical makeup of everybody else in the country? Because obviously he's a multimillionaire, maybe a billionaire. It's not clear from the accounts, and I think it's important that people see he is just like any of us. If you prick him, does he not bleed?
Oh, that is beautiful.
Yes, and
that is beautiful.
Not a robot, as some people might be levelling at him.
No, he's not a robot. He loves AI. he loves a bit of AI. I mean, if he could run the government by AI, he blimming well would. That's what I'd say. And who can say it wouldn't be jolly good?
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, robots actually probably wouldn't be that bad.
No, and they definitely wouldn't join a union.
Yes, that's so true. That's so true.
So, maybe it's a good idea.
And also,
they haven't
Producer
yet
Martin, can I just say, Producer Martin, I don't want to reprimand you on air, but if you ask things like, well, it shows he's not a robot. Well, clearly he's not a robot because he's letting blood.
He's not a cyborg. I think you're thinking the word cyborg.
To be honest, the only foolproof way of proving someone's not a robot, I think, is to ask them to select 3 different pictures that all have a bicycle in. That's
can you
the
do
only
that?
one that I've heard of.
Can Rishi do that?
So
do we know
far.
if he can do that?
I think Rishi could do that if he was told beforehand what a bicycle was. I think
right, there we go.
Because
you see?
it's a form of transport he's obviously never
hasn't
had any use for. I mean, he'd definitely be able to say, I recognise different shapes. He's definitely good at shape recognition. But if you asked him to recognise a bicycle or, heaven forbid, a bus.
Yes.
Or a monorail, some sort of like a minibus maybe. None of those things have ever been part of his life. So contactless card reader.
Well, yes. I mean, that's the nice thing though about him. He does try, doesn't he?
He really does
like with
try.
the contactless card reader. There was that wonderful picture where you could see he was really giving it a good shot.
Yeah, he was like a dog trying to understand football. Like he was giving it a go.
Yeah.
You could see his face was moving in the right direction, but he just simply didn't have the information to hand. And that's fine.
Yes.
That's fine.
I don't know about our listeners, but I know that's the kind of Prime Minister I want.
He's eager.
Yes. Yes, he is. With his little suits.
Yeah, I mean, they are made for him, especially, I believe, by a special sort of midway between a child and an adult suit maker. So
a tween,
it's quite
a sort of tween suit.
But less colourful than that suggests.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
You can see his ankles, which I think is very important.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's good too, because he's showing that he's like the rest of us. Sometimes he doesn't get suits right.
Yes,
like,
he's normal, just like us. He's just like us.
He can afford to get the very best tailors, but he refuses to.
Yes.
Instead, he gets somebody who's obviously decided that ankles are part of the outfit.
I think that's wonderful. I also, while we're here, it's just great to get a sort of strong political mind in the studio. Because the other thing I wanted to talk to you about is, I don't know if you've been following, but obviously Nick Timothy looks like he's making a return.
Good old Timmers.
Yeah.
Timmy, baby. Great guy. I mean, he deserves a second chance, doesn't he? Sure, he absolutely effed it up with the Theresa May business. But we all made mistakes during those years. You know, I backed a number of candidates who I now regret backing. But, you know, in the end, these things happen, and he's done his best. He's come back. He's got a beard now.
And what a beard. I mean, it's sort of been dubbed Rasputin-esque, hasn't it? Yeah.
It's not, I say possibly not the best model for beard. I don't know about you. For me, I prefer a sort of slightly more elegant, maybe pointed beard, maybe a little bit closer shaved. He looks a little bit like a tramp.
But Geoffrey, what I would say about that is, isn't he just following in the footsteps of Dominic Cummings, who was also an advisor and a great mind? And Dominic was always very sort of slovenly dressed, looked like you'd sort of found him off a park bench and he was trying.
He was living in a skip for a while, wasn't he? Yeah.
Yes, he was. I used to go over there sometimes and say, hello, Dominic, how are you doing? And he'd swear at me, but in quite a good-natured way.
Did you bring him sort of chicken wings? Because if you didn't, then he was quite
I used to bring digestives. Was that not?
No, too dry. He needed a little bit of...
I always thought digestives. I thought those people liked them.
Apparently not.
But I think, going back, I think what Nick Timothy does, doesn't it, is he's kind of following in that sort of maverick, I don't care what I look like, but I will tell you what for.
Absolutely. And he's taking it from Matt Hancock, so it's impossible to do any worse, really.
Yes.
As a constituency MP. I mean, he literally went to the jungle.
Yes, yes, he did.
And anyone who does that really shows themselves to not be behind their constituents, So I don't think Nick Timothy can. Well, he starts from a low base.
Yeah.
Let's put it like that.
Yeah.
But we'll wait and see. I'll definitely give him a welcome when I see him, because we're good old chums from the old days, and looking forward to it.
Yeah, will he get in? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, he'll definitely get in. I mean, it's a safe seat. It's nearly as safe as my seat, and I inherited my seat from my father.
Yes, how wonderful! Yes.
Yeah.
On the last word on Nick Timothy, I would like to say that he's. Oh God, I've completely forgotten what I was going to say about him.
Well, that happens with him quite a lot. Yeah, he's got one of those faces where you look at it and you go, I've got a... Oh, no.
No, nothing. It's gone. Oh, I know. I was also going to say that he kind of started the trend for showing us how rubbish civil servants are and that they need knocking about a bit.
Yeah, I mean, what I've always said about government at the moment is that there are no such thing as bad ideas.
Yeah.
Just good ideas the civil service can't deliver.
Yes, that's very, very good. That's very good.
And we've shown that for years and years and years, I think.
Yeah, there's definitely... Well, listen, before I continue with the interview, I should check in with my producer and see if he wants to add anything.
Well, I do have some slight concerns. I mean, are you not worried that this idea of, Rishi hurting himself in order to try and to help out is going to continue further down with Nick Timothy and others taking a similar approach? I mean, I think we'd all hate to see a spate of MPs, self-mutilating, jumping off, getting involved in jackass-style stunts.
It's funny. I feel Martin, like you might be the only person in the country who wouldn't like to see the MPs self-mutilating. Well, I mean, you should read some of the letters I get from my constituents. They have suggested some extremely unpleasant things with various household objects, and I've only done a few of them.
Well, there's already a lot of pressure on the NHS, and I am a bit squeamish. So, I mean, I do have a mild amount of concern for the livelihoods of all humans, even if they are. That's fair. It's fair.
Well, obviously, we wouldn't be using the NHS, so don't worry about that. But
no, that's foolish of me.
Well, thank you, the Right Honourable Geoffrey Geoff-Geoffrey, for that great insight of today's, the news of this week. Wanted to talk about Britney Spears and her husband, but no time for that. But now, on to our long-form interview with Sir Geoffrey Geoff-Geoffrey, where we really get into the heart, and if I may be so bold, the soul of the modern Conservative Party. What I want to ask is if you can explain your political philosophy.
I mean, how long do you have? Seriously, how long do you have?
It's up to Martin, really. I mean, he...
we'll see about...
You say as much as you want because Martin has to cut it. He has to edit it. I did a one-woman show once. It was 6 hours long, and we
yes.
had to get it into a 15-minute segment. And
Yes.
I had to keep saying back, no, Martin, no, that's not right. That didn't include that bit. But we got there eventually, didn't we, Martin?
Oh, yes. I mean, I try and cut out as much as I can, but we do have to deliver a programme at the end of the day. So,
Right. Okay, well, sure. What is my political philosophy? I suppose a number of things. I suppose the first thing that comes to mind is what a great country this is.
Yes.
Now, of course, we're currently in Edinburgh, which is technically in Scotland,
Yeah.
of course.
I'm just going to briefly stop you there because we are both in Edinburgh.
Yeah.
I'm doing a show, and I think you're appearing in one as well.
Yeah, it's funny. I am appearing in a show. It's funny how this has come about, really, because there's a comedian, you might have heard of him. Let me just check. Matt Green, I think his name is.
Oh.
And he's a typical
Sort of wokey.
lefty.
Yeah, lefty.
you know,
Blah, blah,
metropolitan
blah. The
liberal
government
elite.
are bad.
Yeah,
Yes.
Twitter loving, tofu eating wokerati
Yeah,
type.
horrific.
And he's doing a show up here, but you might not be aware. There's a line in the legislation of the Public Order Act 2023, which a lot of people missed because they were so bothered about all the protest stuff. I've always said, if you want to protest, it's pointless. If you want to change things in this country, just have a word with an old school friend. That's how.
Yes, of course.
That's how we
Yes.
get things done.
And the thing is, with people say, we can't do that, we don't have as good connections, I want to say to them, it's not our fault if you can't make friends.
Exactly. I mean, chums, friends, mates, whatever the word is, that's what you need. But people got so upset about that, they missed a very key part of it, in my opinion, which is that every show now, whether it's a theatre show, comedy show, wherever it is, has to be balanced
Yes.
politically. It's very important, legal requirement now. So if this Matt Green fellow wants to do a show, he has to have me on first as a sort of counterweight.
Damn right.
Yeah.
Damn straight.
Right.
Yes.
It's not just me. It's not just me. There are plenty of others too. Sorry, Martin, you wanted to say something?
No, I was wondering how that's going down with Matt Green's audience, because I imagine he maybe attracts more of a liberal crowd than you would usually talk to.
I think I would describe the reaction as sullen,
lovely.
yeah.
hostile,
Oh, okay, yes.
Okay.
quite angry at
Yes.
times. But, I've got half the show, so they can stick it.
And also, I think that's quite a positive reaction, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So far, no missiles. So better than several conferences I've done.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, it's been all right.
I do actually have a question about this liberal balance. Or does it apply to other shows like Harriet's, for example, that are perhaps skewed a bit more towards the more conservative comedians out there? Are they having to have a liberal on to balance that out?
Well, not usually. No, because they are themselves balancing some of the other shows out there, you see. Because obviously we can't get to everybody.
Right.
This doesn't work. Obviously, technically, legally, every show should be this, but it's not applying just yet to everyone. We simply don't have the personnel to go around and check every show. So obviously, the right-wing shows, there are a few occasions where it's the other way around. I believe that Jim Davison's having to cope with Jeremy Corbyn on a double bill, which is very exciting.
Great.
Wow.
Very moving show. Beautiful. But surprisingly funny too. But in general, it tends to be, for example, Mark Steele. You might be aware of him, very famous sort of lefty comedian.
Yes.
Yeah, he's currently sharing the stage with Jacob Rees-Mogg. So
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
it just creates a nice balance,
Yeah. And
Yeah, I suppose so.
Producer Martin, you've seen my show. So actually,
Yes.
you know that it is offering a corrective. It doesn't need any lefty voices when we live in a lefty world.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
I am the
Also,
balance, Martin.
You are the balance.
I know that's a catch. That's a catchphrase you've been trying to get started for a while now, Harriet. And I've got
maybe
the t-shirts printed, but
yes, maybe if you got that catchphrase out there more, Producer Martin, it would have taken off.
They're not selling, but it probably didn't help that Barbie and Oppenheimer opened on the same week that we were trying to launch our new T-shirt range. So
really hard to see what
not
to
our
put
fault,
up with.
I'd say.
Yeah, he reminds me of the civil service.
Yes, that's often what I think, actually.
Can't get rid of him,
Yeah.
but he's just there.
He's there, you keep him there because he's sensible, but actually it's just unbelievable.
No.
Let's get back to the task in hand. When did you become a Conservative?
Great question.
Thank you, I'm good at those.
I think I would say I became a Conservative with my mother's milk, really.
Oh.
You know, when that was given to me in a bottle by my nanny, it was very clear to me very, very quickly that people had their place.
Yeah.
You know, Mummy was very much doing her own thing in one wing of the house, and that was fine. And, you know, Nanny was looking after us, and that made sense, that there was a sort of hierarchy there. And I understood very soon that Nanny wasn't in charge, because sometimes she would disagree with Mummy, and then the following day she'd be a different person.
Yes.
And it made it very clear to me that, you know, Mummy was in charge, Nanny was her underling, if you would, her employee, and that made sense to me. So even as a small child, I knew that the world worked like that, and I think that's, you know, where my sort of Conservative philosophy began.
I think that's wonderful. I mean, I'd go further than that, and I wonder sometimes, you know how they say all children are born innocent, or all children are born in sin, you know, depending on your philosophy. I like to think that all children are born Conservative.
I think that's fair. If you go to a nursery, which I obviously very rarely do, but sometimes there's a constituency event and I really can't get out of it, you see these little children running around and they're wild. You know, they're wild, but they're wild in a very specific sense. They want what's theirs.
Yeah.
You know, they don't want to share.
Yeah.
Goodness me, if you ask a 3 or 4-year-old to share something, you've got a tantrum on your hands.
Yes, very true.
And yes, we have all these liberal parents around saying you must share that. You know, don't hit him, Jimmy, all this kind of stuff. But I think, oh no, they're just, you know, they're expressing basic Conservative values of what's mine is mine, and you just stay out of my way.
That's really beautiful.
At first, I wouldn't have agreed with you. I would have thought that all children are open and you know, quite liberal in a way. But the more you've described it, the more a toddler does sound like a lot of the current Conservative politicians.
Well,
we've got very Bullingdon vibes going on there.
Yeah, well, that's very much what Bojo was all about. You know, he kept the toddler vibe all the way through to adulthood, and it served him very, very well.
It's like when I did an acting course, they said you have to go back to being a child of when it was unself-conscious and you just acted on instinct. And I think politics is obviously like that.
Yeah, I think the less brain involved in politics, the better.
Well, I think we've had enough of brains.
We've certainly had enough of people with brains.
People with brains. Absolutely vile.
I want people with guts.
Yes, people with guts and tantrums. I'm going to use that word.
Yeah, as long as they're focused on the correct people, go for it.
Yeah,
tantrums can be good. Anger can be a useful emotion.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant.
I suppose the big difference is that toddlers do tend to like trains, don't they? And that doesn't seem to be very common with
but on the other hand,
Tories,
toddlers also love cars, don't they? They love anything.
Oh no, you have got me there. Yeah, and cowboys.
Yeah,
and spacemen.
Yeah, firemen. Love a fireman.
Construction.
Yeah, some toddlers obviously lean to the left a little, but
Martin, your one likes rolling around in the dirt.
Well, that's my dog Lucy. I think you're talking about.
Sorry. I always get confused. They're very similar. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I think she's probably a bit more of a centrist than me. I mean, she sees she's sort of true neutral. I often wish I could live more like my dog.
Actually, so Martin brings up their centrists, which I think we on the right and on the left we all rightly despise.
Yeah, worst.
Yeah, absolutely disgusting. So when you talk about your political philosophy, where do you stand on people like that? Do you try to win them over to the right, or do you think they're a lost cause? They're a sort of gungy mess in the middle of our political life. What can you do?
Well, I mean, the thing about electoral politics is you're always going for the centre.
Yeah.
There's just no way around it. You know, obviously in my constituency, it's as safe as houses because everyone owns their own house.
Yes.
So That's why, really. But obviously, the fringes of each voting sort of cohort is where the issues are. That's where the potential voters lie, in the centre. So, of course, you have to persuade people who are in the centre. But I think the way you do that is by suggesting that people who are a little bit to the left of them are absolutely awful.
Yes, I think that's great.
Really throwing those people under the bus, suggesting that they should drive a bus, take a bus. Just use the word bus a lot to sort of imply that they don't have cars and never will do.
And that again does appeal to the toddlers out there because, I mean, yet another mode of transport. And, not currently voting age, but it's the sort of thing that they'll probably keep with them as they get older.
Miriam Cates said it best. We need new babies. We need more babies, but we absolutely, crucially need conservative babies.
Yes,
because young people these days, they're a nightmare. They're so wokey.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
They're going to turn England into a woke, cultural Marxist utopia,
Well, going with what you were saying earlier, I just want to try that out because Producer Martin's a centrist. Producer Martin, the Corbynists are after you. They want your blood and they want to cause you harm.
Well, I don't know that that's completely true. I mean, I'd have to check up on it.
This is the problem. He always wants to check things.
I think that's the thing. That's why I said brains are so unhelpful to us.
Yeah.
If people just go with their gut, because it's not necessarily people on the left that we're always. It's often someone else, isn't it? It's the real baddies.
Yes.
Immigrants. And the unions. And and the various people who express themselves in different ways.
Yeah, disgusting, horrible.
Make us all feel a little bit strange in a way that we can't quite define.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes maybe late at night we think maybe that would be fun. But then you have to really damp that down.
Right.
That sort of stuff is what you have to do, is really focus on those people.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think if you do it enough, then their gut gets involved. They think, I've heard, enough times today that these people are absolutely dreadful. They're real rotters. And the gut takes over and says, I don't care. I don't want to check. You're right.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with this.
It begs the question, doesn't it? Is scapegoating always a bad thing?
I mean, I will turn it round on you. Is it ever a bad thing?
Oh, that is very clever.
Scapegoating, of course, comes from something in the Bible, I believe, where they used to sacrifice a goat.
Yes.
And that goat took on all of the sins of the village. I don't know the exact details, but something like that.
Yeah.
And that just sounds like a jolly good idea.
Also, it's a good old British tradition, isn't it? I mean, when you put it like that, that's what we used to do back in the day.
Yeah.
Let's honour it by scapegoating. No, we're not going to sacrifice a goat.
No.
We're just going to blame some immigrants, which is better, I think.
I mean, I think if we're going to look back in the day and consider that to be when we were doing ritual slaughter of animals to appease the angry gods, there's probably a lot of other things that we could take on and bring back into our lives, but perhaps we'd be best leaving that in the past.
I mean, I'm talking metaphorically, Martin. Of course I'm talking metaphorically.
Yes. No, it is, again, with the bloodletting of our Prime Minister, and I mean, it's all tying together into a strange world of conservative babies, boss babies. I mean, I've seen Boss Baby, and that was, sure, it's a fun premise for a film, but it's also a real disaster, I think. You can all agree, surely.
Well, doesn't the baby... I haven't seen the film, but doesn't the baby in that film, doesn't he sort of become quite a successful businessman? That to me sounds like
he's
a good
boss
thing.
Baby.
He's a boss baby.
The baby is a boss.
And he's got the voice of Alec Baldwin.
Well, yes,
Disclosed.
Which is a wonderful, resonant voice.
Because we're always asking young people to do more, and if babies can become bosses, I'm all for it. We should put in some sort of tax.
Yeah, that would be great. That'd be great.
Any company that has a boss under the age of 10, give them a tax break.
Yes.
I love it.
Wouldn't that be wonderful?
I mean, child labour laws would probably put a stop to that.
That's not being a labourer, it's being a boss.
It's completely different, Martin. It's completely different.
How many bosses do you know that do any actual work? It's not a difficult job.
I know a lot of people that refer to themselves as bosses or girl boss or having bossed something, but it's hard to say who really truly is a boss.
I'm a woman boss.
Right. Yes.
You can print that on some T-shirts as well, Martin, while you're
I don't
up
think
here.
we should make any more T-shirts, to be honest, Harry. I mean, they're already... I've got a lot of them at home and they're not shifting.
Well, I think Sir Geoffrey Geoff-Geoffrey would have one, wouldn't you?
I would certainly pass one on to one of my friends.
Yes, one of his friends, question mark.
yeah.
So, sorry, Martin, I thought you were going to say something intelligent and then nothing happened.
Doesn't it always?
So,
It's almost like you set that up.
Yes, that was very good.
Cool.
Very good. People forget, don't they, that
lovely
there's a lot
stuff.
of... That's the thing that Labour don't have going for them, is they can't make jokes.
They're not funny.
Where you're funny, Boris Johnson, obviously,
Very
the sort
funny.
of greatest wit, really, of our generation.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just great. And
Well,
what you did there, you floored producer Martin. He was speechless.
I do have a follow-up question, actually, about the news today and the last couple of days, all about this drop in A-level results, which I think ties into your scapegoating, because some would say that this is the machinations of the Tory government to try and change the syllabus out there to sort of bring down the grades for kids. I know there's been a clear idea that there should be a cap on the people going to universities. And is this yet another approach from the Tories to try and achieve that?
I mean, the thing about A-level results day, and it's a lovely day, I love flicking through local papers, seeing all the pictures a couple of days later. It's great fun. It's great fun. But what I would always say to any young person who's maybe a little bit worried that they didn't get the grades they wanted is just remember, in this country, it's not where you're going, it's where you came from that counts.
That's so beautiful.
It's where you started that really matters.
Yeah.
And if you started in a good place, you'll end up in a good place.
Yeah.
You know, that's just basic, really. So all you have to do is make sure you start in a good place and you'll end up in a good place.
It's true. I mean, it's like Lord of the Rings, which I often think about, actually, Lord of the Rings. The goblins in there, I mean, they are goblins in the beginning and goblins at the end. They don't go on to live with the hobbits.
No.
Do they?
They don't try and study themselves out of the goblin caves or whatever they do. Yeah.
They look back and go, I was a goblin, therefore I am going to
That
help
is what I
torch
deserve.
the world. Yes, that is what I deserve. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. There are a great deal of goblins in Lord of the Rings. You might be thinking of orcs.
Oh,
Harriet,
Martin,
but,
same thing.
I mean, they could be. I don't think you can. It's probably quite different.
The point was, is Tolkien knew a thing or
anatomy.
two. He knew a thing or two.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Of course, he famously wrote Lord of the Rings while in Birmingham, while living in Birmingham. So
I don't see how that's relevant to anything. No one writes anything in Birmingham. That sounds like fake news to me. Where did you get that from anyway? Did you make it up?
No, I read it on Wikipedia.
Disgusting.
Basically the same thing.
The same thing. Now, I must ask, so obviously you're a very well-respected minister.
Thank you.
Everybody always talks of you well in the papers, on the streets, at dinner parties. Do you have any aspirations to be leader one day?
Oh, it's the $1 million question.
Yes.
Which people are always asking me, particularly when Rishi's had a bad week. And let's face it, he's had a few. But no, I value loyalty above all other qualities.
That is beautiful.
Particularly if, say, in the future, someone were to work for me as a minister and I were Prime Minister, I would value loyalty in them.
Yeah.
So I think it's only fair that whilst I'm a minister for now, I will be loyal. You know,
Yeah.
I think it's, but you know, what was it that dear old Boris said, you know, all those years ago? If the ball comes loose at the back of the scrum, then who can say whether I might pick it up and run with it?
Oh, isn't that beautiful?
It's a lovely
beautiful,
image.
really poetic.
Because, of course, he did that and then knocked over some children on the way. And,
Oh, what a scamp.
In his inimitable way.
Yes.
And I would put it a different way. You know, if at some point Rishi or whoever is Prime Minister at the time looks battered and bruised by some sort of defeat, maybe electoral, maybe not, would I come along and finish him off? You know, just sort of batter him and nick what's in his wallet.
Yeah.
The keys to number 10 in this metaphor. And, you know, who's to say?
Yeah.
Who knows? Who's to
That's
say?
the thing. And he is, you know, he's quite a little fella, isn't he?
Well, I mean, I don't think it's fair to focus on his height too often. I've restricted myself to only one height-based joke a day.
That's
and I think
very
he appreciates
good.
that.
Yes.
He appreciates that.
Yes.
In cabinet, I chuck one in early doors. We all have a bit of a giggle. And, and then he pulls up his socks, which he can get to immediately because of the trouser thing. And we carry on.
Yeah, that's great. Also, I imagine it's quite good to sort of undermine these people early on and go, no, let's not get too comfortable.
Yeah, because it's not a throne.
It's not a throne.
It's not a throne, 10 Downing Street. We're not living in an age of kings.
No.
I mean, obviously we are. We do have a king. But we're not.
Yes. God save the king.
Yeah, God save the king and everyone who sails on him. But no, of course, it's not a throne. He isn't the king. We have a king, and let's hope we have a king for a while.
Yeah. And that he doesn't do anything silly.
And that he doesn't really talk about stuff.
Yes, no more about the environment, please. It's boring.
Blah, blah, blah.
Really, too much.
And also he's doing himself out of a job, because if there is an apocalypse, what's going to happen to his family?
That's very, very true. Very true.
Should focus on things he can do something about. Talk to some trees.
It does sound like you're probably not the only minister with ambitions. I mean, this has always been the case. People ready to step up and take the role of Prime Minister. Does that make you feel a little uneasy around your co-workers? I mean, are they, for example, like snakes? Are you in a snake pit and you're a little snake running around with the other snakes waiting for Daddy Snake to die?
Well, I'll just pick you up on one thing immediately there. I don't think snakes run.
No, Martin.
If I were a little snake running around, I'd be an axolotl.
No, that is
possibly. Some sort of lizard, maybe. I'm not saying I'm a lizard. That has been quite a recurrent theme in some of the emails I've been getting recently. Not a lizard.
Not a lizard.
I know saying that's a lot. It makes sort of, the more I say it, the more people think I am.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a catch-22, really.
Yeah.
But no, of course, other people have ambitions. Dear old Suella. She's definitely sniffing around.
Yeah.
Kemi. Even James Cleverly.
Oh, lovely.
It's a lovely idea that one of them might get it. But, whoever in the end gets the job, I just hope that the best man from a decent school wins.
Yeah. We've got to keep things how they are. Let's not rock the boat too much. Right, now we're coming to the end of the interview, so let's get back to the original question, which is, what is your political philosophy? I don't think you actually ever answered that. So do you actually have one?
Philosophy is a very big word, isn't it? And
yes,
I think
it is.
If I've said anything today, it's that I don't really believe in brains. I don't think... I think people, if they're too sort of controlled by the brain, by what's in your head, then, you lose on what's in your heart, and your guts.
That's beautiful. Yes.
And I think this is a country that needs a bit more heart, a bit more guts.
Yes.
So I suppose if I have a philosophy, it would be not to have a philosophy, but have a heart issue or a guts problem.
Right.
Like heart and guts. Heart and guts.
Yes. Sort of like a blobfish. Something that's got a digestive tract but hasn't yet developed.
Or a really good meal at a very posh restaurant. If someone offered you heart and guts at a 3-star Michelin, you go, well, I'm in for a treat.
Yeah, definitely. And that's also sort of more attractive than perhaps a blobfish, Martin. I don't think blobfish is
fair enough.
A great image for, really for wanting to get people interested in the Conservative Party and voting Conservative and things like that.
No, that's fair enough.
Though I have to say, Producer Martin, that the blobfish that you sponsor is really quite something.
Yes, well, I do like getting the postcards, and I'm not going to stop supporting him until we have blobfishes back in the UK river system, as the charity has said it will make happen.
Unless they feed on raw sewage, I think that's going to be tricky.
Yeah, it might take some time.
Well, Right Honourable Geoffrey Geoff-Geoffrey, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Pleasure's all mine.
And I'll see you next Wednesday for some wine.
See, then, yeah, I'll bring a bottle. Okay.
Thank you. Well, that's it for this week. Like, subscribe, tell your friends, buy tickets to the live show on the 7th of September at kingsplace.co.uk. Re-follow the Out of Context Non-Censored Twitter account, who has apologised for being mean about last week's show. Apology tentatively accepted. And keep those questions coming to noncensoredpodcast@gmail.com. With thanks to Rosie Holt, Brendan Murphy, Matt Green and Ed Morrish. I'm Harriet Langley-Swindon, and we'll be back next week with more Non-Censored.